Some people carry ghosts, not the spectral kind, the one you find in cliched horror movies, but the ones living and breathing inside of you, waiting for a moment to seize control. That's the kind of ghost I got. A city detective, I bear the burden of multiple souls housed within me, each with a mind of its own, each carrying its own cross. It's dissociative identity disorder, as the shrink calls it. I simply call it my reality. I'm Sam, the rational seasoned sleuth. Then there's Billy, the innocent child that clings to the world's goodness, and Ray, the hothead ready to bulldoze anything that threatens us. Most folks would think of it as a curse, but I see it as a gift. It's like having my own internal squad, each stepping in when the situation calls for their strengths. We have managed so far, coexisting, surviving. The day the murders started, the winds bore an odd chill, an eerie portent that whispered of the dark days to come. They said it was a serial killer. Women strangled and left in their homes, the terror of their last moments etched permanently on their faces. The bizarre signature, a bloody handprint left on the wall, connected the victims. It was this bloody insignia that brought the case to my desk. I am, after all, the detective with a knack for decoding the indecipherable. My heart clenched as I looked at the pictures, the faces of the victims a grim mirror reflecting my own fear. There was something familiar, a gut feeling that something was very, very wrong. The victims' names resonated with a chilling familiarity. They bore names of my alters. A coincidence? Perhaps, but I knew better than to believe in random chance. Fear isn't a sensation that I'm accustomed to, but the thought of one of my own alters being involved in these crimes was terrifying. Billy was too scared. Ray was too brash. But was it possible for either of them to commit such acts? Was there another in me capable of such monstrosities? An icy dread coiled in my gut. The boundaries between me and my alters were starting to blur, my reality becoming a nightmare, darker than any I had ever experienced. They say the mind is a labyrinth, and mine is a labyrinth housing a beast. Now, I must step into this maze, confront my own demons, and hunt down the ghost within my own machine. I am the detective, and potentially the perpetrator. I am the hunter, and possibly the hunted. As the city falls under the shadow of fear, I too must face my own. The game is afoot, and the stakes have never been higher. I had always thought of my mind as a house, with each altar occupying a separate room. But in the depths of this internal labyrinth, I found a door I had never noticed before, hidden in the shadows. Behind it was a room bathed in darkness, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. This was the dwelling place of an alter I had forgotten, one born from a trauma I had buried deep within my subconscious. It was therapy that brought me to this door, therapy that handed me the key. As I turned the lock, Ray surfaced. He admitted knowing about the murders, but vehemently denied any involvement. Then he dropped a bombshell. There was another alter, one that I had forgotten, a dark alter, a survivor of a trauma that not even I remembered. With a trembling hand, I pushed the door open, stepping into the abyss. The confrontation was imminent. As I faced this dark alter, I saw a reflection of my darkest fears, my most suppressed memories. He was chaos, the storm in my mind, and he was the one behind the killings. He admitted it with a twisted pride, reveling in the chaos he had sown. He claimed he committed the murders to gain control, to emerge as the dominant personality. His rationale was as chilling as it was insane. By creating fear and confusion, he intended to overpower the rest of us, to bury us in the depths of the mind from which he had emerged. His reign of terror was not just confined to the city. It was an internal coup, a battle for control over our shared existence. But I wasn't about to let him win. I was a detective, not just of the city's crimes, but of my own psyche. I called upon every ounce of strength, every iota of knowledge, and I waged a war against the darkness. It was a battle that took everything from me, that pushed me to the brink of my sanity. But in the end, with the help of my therapist, I managed to suppress him, to lock him away. I knew this wasn't the end. The road to recovery was long and arduous. I had to reintegrate this dark alter healthily into my psyche, to heal the trauma that birthed him. But before that, there was something I had to do. With a heavy heart, I turned myself into the precinct. It was a strange sensation, walking into the precinct, not as an investigator, but as a perpetrator. My colleagues looked at me with a mix of disbelief and sympathy, but I was ready to face the consequences. I had unleashed a monster onto the city, albeit unknowingly, and it was only right that I paid for it. As I stared at the cold, hard bars of the cell, I felt a strange sense of peace. The dark cloud that had been looming over me had dissipated, revealing a glimmer of hope. It was a long road ahead, but I was ready to embark on the journey. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. I was not just Sam, Billy, or Ray. I was all of them, and I was more. I was a survivor, and I was ready to heal.